We are jamming here, Outliers. This is Niiamah Ashong coming at you through the podcast waves, letting you know that we Outliers are here on a mission and there's something that is much larger than ourselves that we get a chance to contribute to. Thank you for not being average. Thank you for bringing who you are to the table and doing it in a way that allows others to benefit and to see that for themselves. We have with us here an outlier who is playing that kind of a game today. Her name is Alexis Doss, and Alexis, eh, firstly, I'm just like happy to like be getting to know you. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm excited for our conversation.
I'm so excited to be here. This is great. I love that you use the word outlier because that's like a very important concept in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Thank you. Like I've been going with it, and over the years, people are like, what's your avatar? I'm like, they're outliers, and they're like, you got to give me more. I'm like, I can't give you any more than like the actual truth. I'm like, we play this, we're in the data set, we're but we're
Yeah.
but we're getting results that are very, very different from others, and
Yeah.
I get excited to explore into what those results have been for you and how you help other people get those kind of outline results as well. Let's start off though with just like just getting to know you a bit. All right. The way I like to do this here is that I'm going to share a bit of who you've been to me so far. We really are just getting a chance to meet each other here. So I'm going to give you some of that. Some of that, though, it's important for me to ground in. And then afterwards, I'm going to invite you to just share a bit of the context of you for outliers here so that they can get a chance to see, like, all right, what's the game you're playing, right? Sound good to you?
Sounds good to
All right,
me.
cool. Okay, Alexis, I wish I knew what I was going to say beforehand, but I never really do. Um, so let me put it in this way. What I get about you, what I get about you, Alexis, is that you're someone who decides to like look life in the eye, and stare it back down. Right? You're not one to like move back from, I won't even say a challenge, but like an invitation to continue growing, to continue and to like and do so in a way that makes everyone around you also grow as well. I get the sense that like that you know how to have fun. You know how to have a whole lot of fun. Um, but at the same time, the fun is not escapism fun. It's like true like embodied freedom fun in the sense of like, hey, if we're gonna do this, like let's get down to it. Like let's really enjoy this moment. Um, what else do I get about you? Um, I think yeah, I think I can probably leave it at that for now. But there's okay, I'll say this. This is what it comes to. There's a softness to you, right? Which is also really, really, really like approachable, right? Because I get if I spend time in your world, like it's going to be we're going to get down to the core of things, but it's not sharp. It has edges, but it's not pointy.
Mhm.
There's a softness in it which invites a whole lot. So getting to know each other. This is how you've come. This is how I've been able to process you so far here. Talk to me in a half hour. I might have something very different to say. But regardless, I appreciate you letting who you are come through so strongly. And I'm excited to see like how that evolves in the conversation as well. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I would say that especially for like just meeting me, I'd say that that's definitely pretty accurate. I think the idea of like the sharp edges but not pointy is like very accurate. Sometimes I can be
Oh,
intimidating to people, but I'm not scary. I don't bite.
I love that. I love that. Now, guys, if you heard a little bit of a gap there, I think my internet just cut out for a bit. So, like, don't worry. Like we're still here. Is there anything we missed a bit of the first part of what you said, Alexis? So, is there anything else? Would you want to repeat that in
Oh
any
yeah,
way
I
here?
was just saying for just meeting me, I'd say like what you just said in terms of how you are reading things was pretty accurate.
All right,
Like,
cool.
very, very accurate.
All right,
Um,
cool.
so you want me to share about me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Give us some context. Let us know what's the game you're playing right now, Alexis.
Yeah. What kind of brought me here, and I think it's just an important thing to speak on, is I've done a lot of like changing my mind my whole life, and I noticed that a lot of clients that I work with and just people on social media in general, there's one of the big things I work with clients on is like fear of failure, and I noticed that so many people are like afraid to evolve and change their mind, and they pick something and then they decide, they're like, well, what if I change my mind? And I'm like, what if you do? And so I went to school to be a high school history teacher, went through so many things, abusive relationship, eating disorders. I was homeless, living out of my car in LA, and eventually got a health diagnosis that made me start taking my life seriously. And so started sharing on social media just for accountability, to just share. And I was taking care of my health, and when I started doing that and I started to feel better, I was like, I want to help other people feel how I feel. One of the things that I said when I was really into nutrition, because I don't coach that anymore, but I said I don't think people realize how good their body and minds are designed to feel. We just walk around all day long being like, oh, well, my back hurts, or oh, I'm depressed, or I'm this or that, and they kind of almost accept that fate. And so I really wanted to help people shift that mindset. And so from then, that was about 2013 up until now, I have evolved my business in a million different ways. I did nutrition and fitness. I did network marketing for a little bit. And then I got into life coaching because I started asking more why questions instead of just giving somebody a meal plan or a different workout when they were struggling with it. I asked, well, let's take a second and take a few steps back and ask, well, why has this been difficult for you? And so once I did that and I started to understand more of the root of what people were struggling with, that's when I really started to help people get results instead of just trying to put like a band-aid on the problem. And so once I got really good at building my business, I was like, wait, I can help other people build their business too. And so that's kind of why I got into business coaching, but I still consider myself a life and business coach. I typically work with, at least now, and again, it's evolved so much, but now I work with a lot of people with ADHD. You do not have to have ADHD in order to work with me. But I really like helping people have tough conversations with themselves. On Instagram, I am the tough love coach, self-proclaimed. And I say this a lot. I was telling you this before, but like successful people have honest conversations with themselves. And so I kind of like to be that friend that you go to when like you don't want them to just have you live in Delulu land and they just tell you the stuff that you don't want to hear. Like I'm that person. And I've said this before, but I'm the kind of person that like I'm totally okay with being the person that tells you things you don't want to hear and you don't like it at first, but then a month later, a year later, you come back and you're like, that thing that you said to me, I really hated it at the time, but you were so right. And it's not about me being right. It's more about like, I just intuitively was given this superpower. I believe it's like what makes me different from other coaches, is that I just feel like I am able to read people in a different way. I'm able to ask questions in a way that people haven't been asked before. I have people that come to me and they're like, I've been in therapy for 8 years and you just asked me a question that my therapist never asked me once. And so I feel like I just have that innate superpower. And I really like to just get really deep into where people are at. And the last thing I really like to help people do, because I feel like this is how I show up on social media, is just help people live authentically. I think a lot of people are trying to fit into a box, and especially with this podcast being about outliers, like I think that even if you are an outlier, there's still parts of us that feel like we want to do things to people please or to make someone happy or to fit in. And so I really like showing people that showing up as like authentically raw version of you makes life so much more fun. And then you're going to attract the kind of clients, friends, people in your life that also make life more fun because you're not putting on a mask to like meet people. You're just showing up authentically you. And so that's another big piece of what I do.
Oh yeah. The thing that Alexis that's coming here is I'm starting to see how when you're in conversation with someone and you're actually working toward a goal, how
Mhm.
like people come in and the things they say just really resonate with you in a specific way. That
Mhm.
was really more generic than I wanted to say. So let me
Yep.
flip this all around here and make it real. Um, as you're talking, I'm recognizing for myself there's components in my own business that I'm like shifting right now. I told you I was like doing a lot of one-on-one work, and now I'm really bringing out the community and focusing on that.
Mhm.
And what was playing out for me was how, as I was hearing what you were saying, I was thinking about it through the lens of making this shift again, through the lens of making this transition. And what was going on in my mind was like 2 weeks ago, before I was like very committed on making this year, I would have heard all that a little bit differently. And
Mhm.
so I'm wondering, outliers this year, just take some time real quick here, just to throughout this conversation, maybe give yourself like 2 or 3 times in this conversation, just check in and see like, oh, what is the lens in which I am hearing these statements from? What's the frame in which I am even coming into this conversation with or listening to this? Because I would say you've given me something just in your introduction and giving me context. I'm like, oh, that's something I can play with already. So
Mhm.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Uh, Alexis, as we have our conversation, I gave you this invitation beforehand, but I'll put it out here again, which is that like I guess my general thing is I'm like, I don't need this podcast conversation to look or feel like any other one out there. Like, and if we get a chance to just show the world how you just hold people to, in my mind, hold them to account, then like feel free to bring it. So if there's anything that feels like out of alignment with me as we're talking, if anything that like you're like, hey, I want to dive in more or whatever it is, like
Yeah.
just bring it. Part of me definitely craves that because it's just
Yeah.
like that'd just be fun.
Yeah. I love it.
Realistically. And you
Yeah.
know what? Why would it be fun? Because this, like, I am, and I think and I know my people are like, we just want to learn more about ourselves so we can be even more outliering. It's like on our own, we've gotten to this part. How much further can we take it?
Mhm.
Is there actually an end? Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, like, let's start off here. Like, you could have been doing anything else in the world, right?
Mhm.
What brought you down this path here, and how did you know, like, hey, out of all the things I'm gonna do, like, I'm actually gonna keep leaning into like the the coaching, the business coaching, and so forth.
I think I've always just had like a leadership energy about me. Even thinking back like in like first grade, like follow the leader. Like I wanted to be front of the line. I my first job was like a camp counselor. I went to school to be a high school history teacher. I coached sports. So I've always had that kind of energy behind me of like wanting to be a leader. And it naturally comes to me. Like in group projects in school, I'm the one leading the way. And so for me, it's always felt comfortable in a leadership position of some sort. And I knew I always had a lot to say, and I knew I was intelligent and intuitive. And so I never thought I would be doing this for sure, but I think I always knew I was going to be in some kind of like coaching, teacher, leadership type of position. And I think what like led me here is kind of going back to what I said earlier was taking control of my own life. When I write a book, it's very much going to be around like victim mentality, pity party type of thing, because I was in that for so long. And I think taking control of my life and realizing that like no one was coming to save me. And then I saved myself and I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. I I just and I'm so much like this in so many areas of life. Sometimes it can definitely be a weakness, but our greatest strength is usually our greatest weakness, where I just see how good life can be and how good you can feel and how all the good things can happen. I just like want to give that to other people. And so I think that's what drives me is like knowing like how much money you can make or how successful you can be in business or how good you can feel or happy or not angry or not physically in pain. And I'm just like, oh, I just want to take so many people and just be like, look at this crystal ball, see what you can have. And I think that's really what drives me is continuing to improve myself in my life. And every time, like, not that I ever think I'm done, but every time I feel better in some way and I change my life and I make a new shift and I have a new perspective, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is infinite. We can just keep going. And I think a lot of people live their life where they just get to a certain point and they either give up or they're just like, oh, this is as far as I get. And I'm like, no, like there's no end. And I want to keep showing people like that there is no end, and not from a place of like constantly growing, because I think with personal growth booming in the way that it has in the past 10, 20 years, sometimes people can get too obsessive over it. And so I think it's finding the balance of like, I want to improve myself, but I'm not going to do it from a place of like, I need to fix myself. It's I'm great and I just want to keep like improving myself.
Oh yeah, that makes sense to me. I get that. The I think that's why people listen here because it's like they're like I'm already playing out
Yeah.
but I also know that there's still more.
Yeah.
We have a saying in our community that says it's just a Tuesday. Where it's like people are like how did you do that and this is like I don't know, it was just a Tuesday. Like this is what I did. Like
Love
these are the
that.
people that I talked to.
Mhm.
I we feel you on that, and I'm driven to bring out something that you had brought up when you were giving us context about you, which is it feels like you get to a place, you see how good it can be, And then you bring other people in that understanding. And then as that understanding grows, it actually takes you to another place, to the next place, and then you bring people into that. So you said like I didn't know my body could feel this way. And then I got into like nutrition and working with that. I don't do
Yeah.
that now, but it grew me into like this other thing. And then you're like, wow, that started getting really good. And then eventually that grew into the next thing. I just want to just say like how much I appreciate that. Because there's what it feels for me is like you allowed yourself to go through various stages, and to like maximize what each stage had to offer at that time. And then, but it never really pigeonholed you in either. Just like this is just what I'm talking about right now. And as the evidence kept growing, as your experiences kept growing, and as I'm assuming your audience kept asking for more, that like you kept moving into that. Can you speak a bit to that? Because I know myself, honestly, like I'm like there's a huge there's a huge movement that lives and walks around with me, and there's like 87 things that could be done, you know and just like allowing yourself to like either choose the one or knowing when it's time to expand out. I'd love for you to speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, I actually love that you brought that up because that's a really big thing that I talk to with my clients and like my audience, especially within, and anybody can struggle with this, but within ADHD, we tend to have a lot of ideas and we just like don't know what to do with it. And I think like there's two things I want to speak on. One is like the idea, like the word that's coming to me is like your brand. um I find that a lot of people are trying to figure out like how to niche down and how to pick an idea and then run with it. And I'm like a very centrist person in most things. I kind of can see both sides, and when it comes to like niching down, for example, or picking something, I think that you need to in some extent, because like if not, your content, your whatever is like throwing a fishing net into the ocean instead of a pond. But at the same time, people are so like multifaceted and things are so nuanced that you can't just expect people to only talk about one thing. And so when I'm going back to this idea of like brand, I think that one of the reasons why I've been successful, even though I've changed so many times, because there are people that have been following me since 2013 and still follow me to this day, and they don't even have a business. And they followed me from the beginning and still follow me because I really live and breathe my brand, which is tough love. And your brand is essentially like who you are or how people think of you when you're not in the room. And so it was funny, there was this meme going around one time where it was like a Care Bear and they looked really mean, and like the caption on it was like, I'm the intensive Care Bear. And so many people sent that to me when it was going around, because that's like tough love, and it just like solidified the fact that that's me. So I think like the first piece of this is like you can be multifaceted, you can have all these ideas and things that you want to do, but does it have an essence of you? What is that common thread through your DMs, your comment section, things that you do, your clients, or whether you have a business or not, like whatever it is that you want to represent you, like what is that? And if you can live and breathe and be in it, it doesn't matter what you do, people will still follow you. It's the reason why Beyonce could sell a trash can and everybody would want to buy it, because it's Beyonce, but she had to like earn that position, like, and that's why she started with singing. She got really good at like Destiny's Child and all of that, and now she can do anything she wants because she's created that brand. And so I think it's important, going to my second point of like, and even going back to the point I was talking about in the beginning about like changing your mind, people are so afraid, they have all these ideas, they're afraid to just pick one because the other ones, like they think that the other ones are going to just disappear. They can go on the back burner, they're not going anywhere. Just pick one and run with it. Because, and a lot of one of the biggest things I talk about with a lot of clients is fear of failure. And the thing I like to help people with is failure doesn't have to be a thing. Failure is just data. And so if you try something and it doesn't work, it's always going to be a win-win, because you're either going to find out that maybe it did work out, and now you know that that's the thing and you want to run with it, and then you could be successful with that and then pull something else off the back burner. Or it doesn't work, it gives you data of why it didn't work, and then you can go choose the other thing. And I think so many people like live in this black and white all or nothing thinking, where it's like, okay, I have a bunch of ideas, I don't know, like, just if it's really that like hard, flip a coin, put a bunch of words in a like on a piece of paper in a hat and pick one out, because at the end of the day, it matters more that you're doing something than what you're actually choosing. I started a podcast like a little over a year, I think, and a half ago, but I've been doing my business for 11 and a half years. And the amount of people that told me to start a podcast, but I just didn't feel like it was necessary. There were other things that like wanted my attention. Would it have mattered if I started a podcast, 5 years ago or now? Maybe, but we're here and it doesn't matter. And so I think that's like the biggest thing is like it's so much about self-trust and trusting that whatever you pick is going to give you something information of maybe it's going to be the thing, maybe it's not going to be the thing. And I think that's what matters more is just action over the right decision, you know.
You asked me a question at the end of that. So this is outliers know this. I don't let rhetorical questions go in my space. So do I
I
know?
love that.
Do I know? The answer is like what you're saying really resonates, right? I'm hearing the action elements of it. I'm hearing various components of continuing to build and grow. I'm hearing the brand part of it. I can feel a question that's coming up for me as you're talking right now, right? So this right now. I've recognized like I've been in business for a number of years here. You actually took me back when you said like I've done 11 years. I'm like, oh, the first time I got paid for a business was back in like 2014 or something like that. So I've been at this game for a while now, you know? And what was playing through me was this component of the like being able to market in a specific way versus building a brand. All right. And as you're talking, you're like I'm realizing some things. Like the last year I've written a book, didn't put it out into the world because I was like, I don't want to have to market this book. It's not that like it's ideas, but it ain't life changing. You know, I don't want to have to market like for
Yeah.
that. It'd be cool to go on stage and say I have a book, but that's about it. Like it's more of like an ego play than anything else. Um, and the I realized as we were talking that I'm like, oh, I've been focusing on how do I just like go reach out to people and like me try and get my message to them. But there's something about when you're talking about brand that feels like a really different way of approaching it, which is just like, how do I create a place such that when people find me, they know that they're home, you know, or like this is one of the rooms that they can go to in the mansion that is this world here, right? So can you speak a little bit to like the components of doing, especially with us outliers, like doing something that's seen as a bit different, and then like actually building a brand behind that, you know, that rare combination that is you, Alexis, you know, or like you and the outlier that's listening to this. Can you speak a bit to that and you know some of the things that you learned or some of the things that like really threw you off the game as you were building it?
Yeah, I think again it goes back to what I was sharing about that authenticity piece. I think that so many people are trying to fit into the box of what they think will go viral, what they think will be successful, instead of what they actually want. And it's funny because if you look at the people that are wildly successful, usually it's because of that uniqueness, that rareness, that they really figured out like whatever it is that's them. Of course, you'll find like the strays that just like got really good at figuring out what goes viral. But like most of the time, those people I can tell you because I've talked to them aren't really that happy, like they're not really fulfilled. And so go ahead and try to do whatever's going to like stick. And you can pay attention to trends and things like that, but it still needs to have the essence of you. And so if you can show up and figure out what feels good for you, what authentically feels good, and show up in that way, and not care whether it's going to like be successful or not. And I know that's so difficult in the world that we live in because there's also nothing wrong with wanting to make money, but you're going like the long term, which most people in the world we live in with like Uber, you can call a car to your house. You can swipe left or right to date people. You can have Uber Eats and DoorDash deliver. Like we're just so used to now that people are constantly thinking in the short-term comforts versus a long-term gain. And if you say, okay, and I always say this to all of my clients, and the answer is always the same exact thing 100% of the time. I'm like, if you could look into a crystal ball and you knew that in 3, 4, 5 years, you were going to have your dream life, you were going to be making the money, you were going to feel fulfilled and feel good. But during that entire period, you were going to be unsure and it wasn't always going to be playing out right. Would you still do it? And everybody's like, yes. And so that's like, I feel like where people need to live and being okay with that. But I work with people, again, been doing this for a while. I'll work with somebody or they'll come to work with me. And they're like, I'm not, I feel like I've been really doing this business and I'm not where I want. And I'm like, how long have you been coaching or trying at this? They're like, a year. I'm like, a year? That's like such a short amount of time. And you're probably not even showing up consistently in the way that you need to. People want to start a business and just expect clients to come. One of my favorite people, I feel like he sometimes splits the room, but I love Gary Vee. And he did Wine Library TV. I could get these numbers wrong, so somebody can fact check me, but he did Wine Library TV, which was a YouTube channel where he tasted wine, and he did that for like 1,000 episodes before anybody cared about who he was. I can tell you right now, 90% of the population would not be willing to put 1,000 YouTube videos out before they actually like saw success. But now he's a multi-millionaire, and everybody knows who he is for the most part, whether you like him or not. And he's wildly successful, and he has so many different companies. And so I think if people can get into that mindset of like, one, show up authentically, and then do it consistently, you're going to see success. And again, if you do it from an authentic place, it's going to feel good, it's going to feel fulfilling. You're not just going to be successful, but because you can be making money and feel unfulfilled, you're going to be successful and you're going to feel fulfilled at the same time. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
I feel good about the answer here. Like as you're talking, I realized I want to take things in a different direction here, and um, I love the component of branding. I got something from that in a meaningful way. You talked about something though that like it's kind of like your, I won't say your tagline, but one of the things that you use through life, which is like successful people have honest conversations with themselves. Am I getting that right?
mhm.
All right, cool. So let's break this down here, right? So that sounds good. Like it sounds good overall. It feels like I'm like, ooh, that has some power to it. Um, are you open to us having like getting into a place where either I want to bring in that component because I think that's one of the most interesting things.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Honest conversation. So, and I guess what I'll do is this: I'm going to ask you was a recent conversation you had with yourself that was an honest conversation. You can ask me, or you and I could just like jump into some kind of element of that right now because I think that there's something really powerful around that. Would you mind sharing with us though? Let's maybe give some context here. Would you mind sharing with us like a conversation that you recently had with yourself where you had to get really honest?
Yeah, I love that because that's one of the questions I ask for my guests on my podcast.
Oh,
Because when
cool.
I have guests on my podcast, I don't just like have a conversation. I focus specifically on their failures and their struggles because I think
Yeah.
it's so often we're just hearing how successful people are successful and all those things. And I like to bring successful people on. And then it's like, we're going to talk about all of the crap going on in your life. Right. So I love
Nice.
that question. Um, I think for me, one of the honest conversations I had to have recently was around like finances and money. Sometimes I think that we can like I know for me again going back to this idea that I'm like centrist, I love the middle ground between spirituality and science. I'm very spiritual and I believe in manifestation and abundance and all the things, but I also love like science and like logistics and things like that. And so I realized that I was living a little bit too much in the world of like everything's going to work out and it's going to be totally fine, which I think is beneficial, but I realized that I had to have the honest conversation of like getting better with like budgeting, getting better with like how I was handling my money. And which is, funny being in business for so long, I've had like ebbs and flows of what that looks like. But I feel like once I started to take it more seriously, and again, not just in like the logistics standpoint of like really looking at how I'm budgeting, how much money's coming in, how much money's coming out, which I've always looked at. It was just like tightening that up a bit, but it was also the energy around how I was handling my money. Something I've heard taking like money manifestation courses and things like that is like how you physically handle money. Like in your purse or your wallet is like dollars like crumbled up. Are they like, are your credit cards a mess? Like what does that actually look like? So I think those two areas were areas where I was like, yeah, I'm making great money. I have been for a while, but like I could do even better if I took that more seriously, essentially.
Mm, I love that. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that in.
Mhm.
I'm gonna play with you. You good with that?
Yeah, let's go.
Also on my end here, the I think I've had a few. The one that was most recent was an honest conversation around the structure of my business. So I've been doing one-on-one coaching for years, and it was just like less than 2 weeks ago, maybe like a week and a half ago, where I really realized that like the one-on-one coaching part of my business, I enjoy it. It is, but it's not why I'm here.
Mhm.
Like it's not. And every time I'll go in, I'll get a few clients, and I'll be like, all right, everything's good, and I'll go in, I'll try and build out what I do believe I'm here for, which is about community. And what will happen is that I'll bring in, and this is like, so I told you about that first dollar I made 10 years ago, if we're going to be honest, let's be
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah.
Um, I brought in people for, I think it was a $97 for 3 months. Right. So it's like $33 a month. Was like the deal. I was helping like aspiring actuaries to get jobs and get into the profession and pass their exams. And I remember like not like being uncomfortable asking for renewals, being uncomfortable um I always got to a place where I would get about like 5 to 6 people in the group, and there was this cap there. And I've been looking at this over the last 10 years. I'm like, the same thing keeps happening. I keep getting 5 or 6 people in the group. Then I'll go out and I'll get like 3 or 4 more one-on-one clients. And then I'll come back and get 5 or 6 more people because I closed that group down. I'm like, that's not it, so on and so forth. I'm like,
Yeah.
I've just been replaying the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that the thing for me was that like one-on-one coaching became like my catch-all because I'm like, well, maybe if I just focused on here, I can get a couple clients in at some good rates and be good. And so the honest conversation I had with myself was like, I need to close the doors to this. Like it's like there may be other ways that I work with people individually, but I can't like it can no longer be like my starting point because I'm going to keep running back. I'm going to keep running back when I know that this isn't the thing, and instead I need to sit down and honestly ask myself how I'm going to keep getting literally 7 people just to like break the trend, but
Yeah.
like how I'm going to get over that so I can actually get into what really matters for me. And uh, the thing that's been most confronting about that has been a thought of do I now need to like market myself, put myself in like say the right words to get someone in, And so when you talk about brand, it's actually really hitting me too, because I'm like, oh wait, no, like I can just go out there and brand and then bring people in from there.
Yeah.
Ooh, that hit me with a huge sneeze right right at the end of that there. Um, Thank you for playing this game. Thank you for being in this space here. Um, So what I wanted to ask you here is around like you talk about some of the things that you do right now, and talk the things that you like, the incredible things you do with your clients. You even bringing in like how like you've had to be honest with yourself recently here, and thanks for being real about that. I want to talk on the other side of things. What's something that's like exciting you? Maybe it's like scare sighting, where it's like, it's like, hey, this is the next epic game that I'm playing, and this is what I'm working toward right now. Hopefully, something that's like not necessarily finished or like it's like informing. What's something that comes to mind around
Oh
that?
yeah, I definitely have something. So this has been a pool I've been being pulled to for quite a while, and I haven't I think I'm always digging deeper. There could be like some fears, but I think the thing for me is like starting to do more in-person events.
Mm.
I've done everything online my entire life, but one of my mentors has been telling me for like the past 2 years you need to do in-person events. And so I'm starting to do that, reaching out to places, and like I'm having some difficulty like finding a place that I want to do it. So I'm like I'm just going to like have something in the park or something, and like not like I don't need like 50 people or anything like that, but I want to start doing live events and retreats. I think the small fear around it is like, and it's silly because I work with my clients on this, but like the small fear around it is like putting all the work into an event and then like nobody shows up or people don't buy, which is totally fine because that's just going to give me information. I'm going to figure out how to make it better. But I just like desire so much to like not have a lot of people for the sake of having a lot of people, but I really do want to like, I always want my message to like get to people. And so I think for me, doing those live events, doing retreats, and none of that really like, I have like some things planned, but I have to figure out like where to do it and like selling tickets and getting the word out there and all of those things. And so that just really excites me because community is also something that I'm really trying to get more into. One on one has been my thing. And I'm like, I talk to a lot of people who, like, for whatever reason, move away from one on one. I don't think I could ever imagine giving that up. And I could say that, and who knows, I could be on a podcast in 5 years and I'm like, I'm not doing one on one. But I just love it. It's where I thrive. And I still love group settings as well, which I think is maybe another thing underneath the surface is like, I love having a one-on-one conversation with someone, and I could still do that at an event, but like group talking with people is not something that I'm not familiar with, but it's just I that prefer that one-on-one. So that's like a thing that's kind of like a little bit outside my comfort zone, not in terms of like speaking in front of people, but more of putting the actual just like event together. That's like one of the biggest things, but I'm really excited about it because I've been feeling this pull for so long, and there's like little things that keep happening that are like, yes, do this, go for this. So that's definitely what I'd be working on right now.
That's awesome. Does this pull this from my side? Does it feel like when you made some of those other changes because you've had multiple changes and evolutions? I'm seeing you shake your head.
Mhm.
Yes, it's like it's
Yeah.
one of those things. It's like okay, it's time for me to grow in this way.
Yeah, yeah, for
Uh,
sure. It definitely is. Again, I've had the pull for it for a really long time, and I'll always do stuff online because I can reach a lot more people. But I think that like once I get in front of people, there's just like a magic that happens, and I just feel in my element. So I know I want to do that, like, and just get face to face and be in the community, with people and see where that leads to with like different events. I'd love to be the kind of person that in my community in Denver, like I'm known not in the ego sense, but like I'm known as someone that like puts on these events, connects people, brings in community in, whether it be entrepreneurs or not, because I work with people who don't have businesses as well. I just think that would just be something that would be very fulfilling for me, for sure.
That's awesome. When that happens and when it comes in, let us know so we can go and like be partners with you on
Oh
and
yeah.
bring it out there. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Love like you consistently just choose like how do I keep on growing. So
Oh, for
I'm
sure.
all in on that. Well, Alexis, it's now's a good time for us to start like bringing things to a close for today. I have like four questions for us to like bring it all home. Okay.
Okay.
The first question here is an outside. What's an outside that you have for any outlier that's listening? I consider an outside as something like any takeaways, some a question, an invitation that you have for any outlier that's listening.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was sharing and what I love to do best is asking people like where is an honest conversation that you need to have with yourself right now. Everybody can think of something and it might even be something that you're trying to pretend you can't hear, but like you need to. It's just that real talk, that thing that like you've either been procrastinating on, starting or brainstorming on. It's like where's that honest conversation? Or maybe it's something that you've been like doing, I don't want to say wrong, but like something you've needed to improve on in your relationships or in your career, because a lot of people will say that they're not happy with where they are, but then they're not willing to like have that honest conversation. And so I would just say to take a second to like look at whatever area of life, like where is that honest conversation that you need to have? Like, what does that look like? And you don't have to even think about what are you going to do with it. Just have the conversation and see where things take you.
Love this. I love this here. Outliers, we've had an awesome opportunity to have Alexis share like how she's been living and growing and continuing to challenge herself in a way by keeping things honest. And if I'm honest, I would love for you to think of one person in your world right now who would benefit from the conversation that Alexis and I just had here. If you can take some time right now to just go and share this message with them and let them know, like, hey, I heard this. Like, I was thinking about you specifically because of X, Y, and Z. Go take a listen. Well, we grow this thing by word of mouth, and what I find is that outliers know other outliers, and to the extent that it's a lonely place out there in a lot of different ways. So, to the extent that anything here resonated with you, or you know someone that it would resonate with, I would love to make sure that you they get a chance to hear about it. And I want to make sure all of us have a chance to know how we can get even deeper into and continue the journey with Alexis. So, Alexis, would you mind sharing with us, like for any outlier that's listening to this right now, how they can continue to dive more into your world?
Yeah, so Instagram is my main place. I'm just at the Tough Love Coach, spelled exactly how it sounds. And I live there, breathe there. That's where I am mainly. I do have a TikTok and a YouTube that are both connected. It's called the Failure Diaries. And so the YouTube channel is the Failure Diaries 44. There's a number at the end of that. But the YouTube and the TikTok are both about taking the stigma away from failure. And so the TikTok I'm sharing, I'm starting it off. I don't know what it's going to come, but what's going to come of it after. But when I started it, which was like January or February of this year, I wanted to share a failure every day. So whether that was a failure that happened that day, like a story time of a past failure, I'm just sharing everything. And so the whole goal is for people to see me share this and be like, this girl's sharing everything that's going wrong, for you to realize it's really not that big of a deal and all the ways I'm benefiting from that. And then the YouTube channel is similar idea, but just a deeper dive into different things. So I actually have a video that is coming out next Monday, I believe. I think it was supposed to come out this Monday, but it's not. Hey, failure diaries. This is what we do. But it's edited, but I just didn't get the chance to do it. And it comes out on Monday. So it's coming out next Monday. And it's all about like my dating life and relationships. And like not everybody really dives deeper into that. So I talk about not only like my recent breakup, my divorce. I also talk about the things that I have messed up in and my failures in past relationships. And so you're just getting like to experience that. And then I also have a podcast called XOXO, Your Tough Love Coach. And they're little short, sweet episodes. It's more of kind of like that every Monday tough love pep talk that you need, that helping you have honest conversations with yourself. So those would be the places that you can find me.
All right, outliers, let's make this happen. Like this, the journey's just starting here. Alexis, I'd like to wrap up the conversations with these last two questions. And the first one here is for you here. What was an insight that you got from today's conversation, an insight to take away? And if you got nothing, that's also great. But like what's an insight that you got from it?
Hmm. I'd say I think I really like the way, I don't know if this would be considered an insight, but I just like the way that you reflect on things. I also love that you talked about rhetorical questions don't go unanswered, because I'm kind of similar in that way. And I think it just shows like that you're like, active listening, and how important it is to be like reflective within conversations. I think sometimes, again, with like social media and our phones and all the things, we can kind of just like not be present all the time. And I think
Mm.
that that just shows like your ability to be present, which I think is an important characteristic.
I appreciate that. And I think we're going to end off here with one last thing, which is talk about the present. I call it a time capsule. In your present moment, you know a lot of wisdom, right? I'd like you to leave a message that you will listen to in about 10 years for
Wow.
for the you that has gone through something that might just need to be reminded of something that you already know to be true. What's the message you would leave?
Yeah, I could definitely think of something immediately. Is just to trust your intuition. Your intuition is never wrong. If you have a feeling to go for something or not go for something, like really just listen to it. Like you yourself always know for sure.
And with that, outliers, we are complete here. Alexis, thank you so much for spending your time, bringing your experience to the table. I appreciate you, and I appreciate what you brought here today. Thank you for being you. I'm looking forward for everything that comes from here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.